Welcome to Tech Tuesday. My name is Abby Ritchie, and I am the tech guru and the owner of Senior Savvy. But you can find me here every Tuesday interviewing tech innovators in the senior living arena. I'm so excited for today's guest. And before I introduce her, I just want to let you know that this week, of Evolve 2022 conference is happening. We've got today and we have Thursday, and the feedback has just been wonderful. So if you're still on the fence about it for any reason, head to the Senior Living Foresight website. You can still get a ticket. I am so looking forward to the speakers that are coming up later today and on Thursday. Really excited for it, and they make it really easy for you to watch it in short segments. Now, I want to thank our sponsors, who include Care Center Stage, IN2L, Sirona TV, Quilt, Total Brain Health, Pocketbook Memory, and Photavia. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We could not do this without you. And now, let's go ahead and run. I want to introduce my special guest today. I've got Shannon Moyes of Volanté. Shannon, welcome to Tech Tuesday.
Thank you so much. That was the cutest intro I think I've ever seen. So I would love one of those of my own one day. That is awesome. Thank you for having me.
You are so welcome. Tell us, how long have you been with Volanté and what do you do there?
Yeah, I've been with Volanté for about 4.5 years. So almost coming up on my half-decade anniversary. I started as a junior technical writer, which I think has actually given me a really interesting leg up to dive into the senior living industry, because it's all about translating complex concepts into more simple things, which I think is really, really important when you're dealing with sometimes a non-technical audience. And now I am the director of sales at Volanté. So I spend my days learning about senior living, healthcare communities. What are their needs? What are their challenges as it relates to point of sale technology and kind of the technology ecosystem, and seeing how we can help them.
I love several things that you said, and one stuck out to me, and that is explaining things in simple terms. I found working in technology and explaining tech topics to older adults that the easiest way to get your point across is by not getting technical. Yeah. Right? Just keep KISS, keep it simple, senior.
Yes, so, I love it.
And the other thing too is that you've got this writing background, which I think is phenomenal, because so many people come out of school not knowing how to write or why it's even important. But no matter what you end up doing, whether it's sales or marketing or tech innovation or even broadcasting, you are going to end up writing. And so to have that strength is wonderful. Well done.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it's definitely something I see as a bigger advantage the more I go through it. Even, for example, if I'm visiting a community and trying to give direction on how to use a kiosk, that not only needs to be shown in an effective way, but it has to be written in very digestible terms. And I think as well, when we're talking about making difficult concepts a little bit more simple, I think one thing that's really important is having integrity when you do that. You don't want to deliver the messaging in a way that's belittling or makes people feel dumb or anything like that. So you do have to be a very good communicator to effectively deliver those messages, which I'm happy that I'm learning how to do.
Yeah, it's so important. I'm really big on coming up with diagrams for your devices. You know, so many of our modern devices are just handed to us without any explanation, and we're just inherently supposed to know how it works, right? And so I've found that a lot of my clients, older adults, struggle with just understanding the basics. But I want to ask you about Volanté. Tell me a little bit more about Volanté, what you do that sets you aside, and what really signifies your excellence.
Yeah, there's a couple things, but in particular, I think the biggest distinction that we always make is we don't want to be just a vendor at a community. We really, really want to be a partner. So we want to be part of that ecosystem of tools that you're getting. So, and point of sale can be the backbone for that, because food is a huge piece of their resident livelihood every single day. It's one of the things that, I mean, I'm my age and I look forward to my food every day. And I know that something, as I get older, you value it more and more. It's a huge part of your day. And with that comes the billing. So how are your meals being paid for? Is there integrity in the billing? So really what our point of sale does is it acts as that backbone that connects all of the different ecosystems. So it'll connect your EHR, your EMR, your billing system.
Oh, you got to explain that all to me, okay?
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Awesome.
break it down. Anytime people come up with abbreviations, I'm like, what was that? So break it down as if, that's the first time I'm hearing it, please.
Okay, sorry. Yes, I try to avoid acronyms, but I apologize for that. So most communities have a system that's their electronic medical records or electronic health record system. So when a resident moves into a community, you add them in there. That's how they're getting established there, and you have all their information. Our point of sale pulls data from those systems automatically. So you don't have to do duplicate data entry, which is time saving and very nice. And then the resident can go about their day. They move in. The next day, they'll show up at the cafeteria for breakfast. They have money on their account. They can go to the spa or salon and get their hair done and have that charged to their room. They can order food from within their room or make a dinner reservation on their phone or iPad. So it really is about building that whole experience for the resident. It's usually powered by that backbone of the other finance system that the community is using. And I think that's a pretty big advantage.
So you mentioned that they've got their medical records. I'm assuming that there are allergies, for instance, or medication interactions, for instance. And then when they go to order something, it shows up as an allergy. So does it already have to, it can or cannot be communicated to whoever's taking their order?
Of course, yeah. So when I sit down at the table, it has my profile that I pulled that information from the medical record system. It will say something like Shannon has an allergy to nuts, or even just a preference, right? I just prefer to not have cheese on things, or I want my food cut up into small bites. All of that stuff gets drilled into your little resident profile. So the serving staff can see it, which is so important in a world where we know staff turnover is very high. How do you get staff to get to know the residents really quickly? That really helps, especially when they have it in their hand. And that information also gets sent through to the kitchen. So that's a really nice part of it. The kitchen gets this nice little piece of paper that says the name of the resident, their preferences, and what they've ordered. So it really helps the resident at the end of the day get the food in front of them that they're going to enjoy, that is delivered to their preferences and customizations.
Yeah, I like that. That's so inclusive and smart. It really is. And when you are finessing your system, how do you go about doing that?
I love the word finesse. I mean, it's a very customizable system. Senior living communities are not cookie cutter by any means. Like, I have yet to find two senior living communities with the same residents who want the same things, the same budgets, the same technology requirements. They're all very, very different. So I think when we're building and finessing the solution, we have to consider all of those things. And I do think a lot of communities right now are starting to do this really nice engagement with their residents and asking residents, what technology would you be willing to use? And I think that's a big piece of it, right? Because then they can come to us and say, I actually think my residents will use the in-room ordering, and then they can add it on. So I think we have to really dive into the audience, understand what they're looking for, and then we can craft our solution around that as well.
Neat. I would love to see this in action and to see it lived out soon. And I know that it is occurring in communities around the country. So one thing I wanted to ask you about is in regards to the technology. I know you mentioned earlier that you were initially a technical writer, right? Mm-hmm. So why technical? Why not fiction?
That's a great question. I definitely had my dad has an engineering background, so I was always really interested in that side of things. And I think that's what brought me towards technical writing. I liked trying to figure out how things work. And while I wasn't smart enough to be the engineer, smart enough to write the manuals on how things work. So I think that was what brought me there. And it's a really, really good core skill to have. I would say I honestly just took like a certificate program to help me with that. And I'd recommend it to anybody because you do learn that very valuable constructive skill of disseminating a complex topic into something really digestible, which benefits you when you're speaking to anyone, young, old, anyone.
Yes. Yeah. It's reminding me, we recently moved and we had to order furniture, and my daughter is she's got kind of an engineering interest, right? Putting things together. And she wanted to put together her furniture, which I fully expect her to be able to do. I remember her saying, like, these instructions, they're so poorly written. And I didn't say anything to her, like, you may not find that it may not follow, a sequence, but she was like, oh my goodness, I can't believe how bad these instructions are. And I was like, yeah, that's kind of how it is,
Yeah, definitely been there.
For sure. And, when you're thinking about the different components of connection at communities and where Volanté does a really good job, where would you say Volanté is like excelling?
I would say in our support is definitely our strongest aspect. Anybody who's purchased any sort of technology understands how frustrating it can be when things aren't working. But not only that, because things do happen. I challenge someone to find a product that they've purchased that doesn't have some sort of something, right? Something's going to go wrong. It's part of life. It's part of technology, but it's all about how you're supported by the vendor or the partner, which is why I come back to saying we don't really call ourselves just a vendor. So picking up the phone, you call us, we're going to answer the phone within 20 seconds or less. We're going to have people on site if you need them. We have email, we have chatbot, we have customer success teams that are dedicated to that ongoing support as well. So I would say, even if you leave the technology out of it, I think that's the big piece of it is how are you supported? Is that person or is that organization invested in your growth? Volanté really, really is. We want to help you save time. We want to help you save money, because if you're saving time, you're saving money. We want to help your residents enjoy their meal periods more effectively. And that all comes with being well supported and being a good supporter of our partners.
And in the past couple of years, so much has changed with technology. There's been benefits and there's been things that have taken us away from spending time with each other, obviously. How have things changed for you and for Volanté in the past couple of years?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. I would say for Volanté, we do service the hospitality industry, right? So there was a big thing that we went through of like, what's next in hospitality? Are people ever going to dine in person again? A lot of point of sale companies definitely had that thought, right? Of when are people going to feel comfortable? So we really had to make some big changes and figure out what is next. And that is a lot more geared towards more self-service technologies, self-service kiosks, digital ordering. These are things that are definitely the future in hospitality, regardless of the vertical. But in senior living, it's awesome because whereas 4 or 5 years ago, if we were talking to a community about kiosks, they might have been, oh, I don't know, I don't think my residents will use that. Now, everybody understands that that's a really great thing to put in your community because people are being less interactive. And whether that's going to last forever, we don't know. But there's also the communities that it's great where they continue that traditional dining and they're going to emphasize that traditional dining and they're still getting people out of the rooms and sitting in at the tables, right? So making sure that we do have that robust table side solution with the profile that I was mentioning earlier. So still focusing on the core of dining and hospitality while factoring in different comfort levels and different trends that we're seeing post-pandemic is kind of the direction Volanté took.
Neat. Yeah. And how do you find out about new technologies or new things that you want to add to Volanté?
Yeah, we definitely go to lots of trade shows. I will say having a big network on LinkedIn. I know myself and the other sales team members, we are really active on LinkedIn, just always asking operators what's new, what are they looking for, what are they seeing in their communities, right? And obviously other industry experts like yourself, it's important for technology companies to have those relationships because you know what's coming too. So just expanding the network through things like events and trade shows, but also just having conversations like we're having here today. Even our previous discussion before we went on, learning things from you, right? So I think the network is key to understanding where things are going.
Yeah, I get it. Are there any magazines or reporters that you follow in particular? I'm just curious.
I definitely follow Steve Moran, Senior Living Foresight, of course. There's a lot. I mean, the list, I focus on not just only like senior living oriented stuff, but I also focus on really heavy marketing stuff because I think it's really important. It's all the fundamentals of understanding your audience. And that applies regardless of what industry you're in, right? So understanding who is the resident and what do they want? Who is the community and what do they want? Who are the stakeholders of the community and what do they want? So that's really how I try to get some of my market research done, is through basic fundamentals of marketing. And then of course, by staying connected in the senior living industry.
What would you say is one of the biggest challenges that you're encountering with getting your message out there, or with using Volanté?
Yeah, I would say the biggest challenge is there are still a lot of communities that are using pen and paper. So it's difficult from a lot of aspects to show them really the cost savings that you get over time by investing in a solution, because it is an investment that you're making, right? So I think especially when people are so used to using pen and paper, you have that added challenge of showing them you're going to save this many minutes a day on what you're doing by hand right now when we move that to technology. So I would say that is probably the biggest challenge, is just getting everybody to buy in. And you really do need an engaged team that's eager to use the technology, right? Because what's the advantage of investing in technology if it's just going to sit there? That's not what we want. That's not what you want. So you definitely have to have a team that's willing to be trained, a team that's excited about the software and hardware. I think those are the challenges that we face. And when we overcome them, beautiful things happen in communities, right? When everybody's kind of working together, everybody starts seeing the benefits and saving time. And wow, I didn't have to actually put in my resident in 4 different systems anymore. So once you get people on board, it's awesome, but it has a bit of a learning curve at the start.
Yeah, I can see that. And tell me, what are some technology fails that you guys have experienced? I know as an entrepreneur, I try a lot of things, and some things stick, some things don't. But I always am learning from the things that don't, how I can refine my process next time. What are some things that you tried that you were so hopeful for, but dropped?
Yeah, I think this is actually an interesting example. At the start of the pandemic, we started, we thought that communities would be interested in buying like COVID safety solutions from us. It wasn't a huge hit. I don't know. I think they maybe had other vendors or providers. So that was one thing we were trying to add to our portfolio that didn't necessarily knock it out of the park. I would say personally, some of the fails that I've had are very simple when it comes to technology. Like, I like to think that I am well versed in tech, but yet I can still put an address in the GPS and end up at the wrong spot. Like, I think like there's impacts of technology that even day to day, I screw up all the time. So it's an interesting world to be in. I definitely think that.
I totally understand. There are times where I'm like checking the boxes of which ones have boats in them, and I can't see it, or like which image is going the right way. And like, I get that one wrong all the time. So, and that just makes me feel like I'm not a robot. I am a human, right?
Yeah, that's true. Actually, that's a good way to look at it.
I'm not a robot. But in the same way, I let my students know, like, okay, you may have gone to school for IT 50 years ago, or in computers, or you worked for IBM, and I value that. But you know what? So much has changed, right? And so even if you were completely skilled and experienced and knowledgeable, everything just constantly is changing and adapting. So it's sort of like we all get back to ground zero learning mode. And I know so many of us had to deal with that 2 years ago when COVID started. It was like we all had to just completely revamp and do things 100% different, right? Yeah.
It was an era of like, what is next, right? And I kind of said that a little bit earlier, but everybody was kind of just like, what is the future going to look like? We don't even know. And I think that's why it's funny to look back on. Everybody was kind of trying the same thing, right? A lot of trial and error, which is really interesting and really fun. But it's also good to see things that were core and fundamental coming back. That makes my heart really warm and happy, which is really nice, like in-person dining, for example. But yeah, it's an interesting world to be in.
Yeah, I know. For me, I had seriously considered shelving Senior Savvy 2 years ago. I just
Wow.
couldn't figure out how to make it work because everything I did previously was in person. And
Right.
I was just like, I'm just going to have to wait for this, and I'll keep teaching just in a different way. And then it wasn't until some of my students who had already been using Zoom for years strongly encouraged me to start teaching my classes on Zoom. And just like you said earlier, like there are technology fails. And I've got to say, just learning Zoom in itself was a technology fail. It's hard to learn.
Hard.
And so many times it just was like, this is terrible. How am I going to do this? But it's the perseverance, right? And just trying it and getting familiar with it and teaching it to other people that really pushes it through.
Yeah, and focusing on the core benefit too, right? Like at the end of the day, you still had that same benefit that you wanted to bring the residents, which was teaching and learning, right? So I think that's a big piece of what drives your direction, even if it is a bit of a wobbly path or a curved path. You had that same core direction. I think that's an important thing to maintain when times are changing so fast.
They are. And you mentioned earlier how when you are using technology, well, you're pretty adept. Are you the kind of person who, when you get something new, do you just dive right into it, or are you like, I'm going to follow the directions?
No, I just go crazy with it. And it's funny because if you asked me, I was with a friend and we were talking about our pet peeves. And my pet peeve is when things don't work and I can't find the reason. So like if my phone charger is not working and I can't figure out why, I'm not okay. I really like to figure that out, but it probably comes from the fact that I don't really follow instructions, despite being somebody who writes them. So yeah, that would be what I would say.
I get you for sure. I feel the same way too. So tell me, what's some technology that you wish existed but doesn't?
Oh, that's a great question. I mean, I think there's a lot of really cool stuff. I'm very, very interested in anything that's like predictive and analytics based. So something that's going to tell me, I mean, there's so much machine learning now that's making predictions and saying like, how many blueberry muffins did I sell in my restaurant last Tuesday when it was raining, to help me predict how many blueberry muffins I'm going to sell next time it rains. Like, I think that stuff is so fascinating. And obviously, if I could apply it on a personal level somehow, that would be cool. Some technology that can help me predict the future a little bit would be neat. But yeah, I think I'm just very interested in anything analytics based or machine learning based, because I think there's so many ways to go with it. So that would be, and I know it exists. It's not really something that doesn't exist yet. So I guess I didn't answer your question, but that's what I like to see.
Speaking of that, does Volanté have a voice activated program?
We have a voice activated reporting portal. So the example that I just made actually is one that we have where I'm an operator and I go into my analytics portal and I say, how many residents came for breakfast, lunch, and dinner yesterday? What residents didn't show up? So we have that in writing, and we also have a vocal component to it as well, which is pretty neat.
Yeah, good. Okay, I want to ask you a fun question. What kind of phone do you use?
I use an iPhone 11.
Okay, me too. And I've got my theories, but I'm not going to say them today. Okay. Now, when you look at your phone, which one of those apps do you think is just remarkable and you wish you would have invented it yourself?
Oh, I love this question. I have to say, from a usability perspective, I have this app called Stocard. Have you ever heard of that?
No, tell me.
Okay, so I don't know if it's a Canadian thing or if it's in the US too, but it has all of your cards in it. So I have all of my gift cards, all of my points cards. It's like a wallet that holds everything. So I think that's a really, really useful one, I would say. And then obviously entertainment wise, I mean, I just downloaded a new one called Musician because I'm learning how to play guitar. So that one is really neat and it teaches you how to play guitar. So those would be my two that I would say I cannot live without at the moment.
Awesome. Good. You know, one that I absolutely love is the Genius Scan. Have you used
what's that?
It's like an Adobe PDF scanner that you use with your phone. It's free, and I'm constantly teaching it to my students because I want to liberate them from the printer, from having to scan and or fax from their printer. You can now do that from your phone. So
you just hold your phone, takes the picture, and sends it. Oh, love that.
Yeah.
Genius Scan. Okay, I'm gonna add that one.
Yeah, that's a goodie for sure. Well, tell me, what can we look for in the next couple of years or even in the near future from Volanté, and what's on the horizon for you?
Yeah, excellent question as well. I think for Volanté, we're really just we are working currently on a new platform and a new product. I can't say too much about it because it is pretty new, but from a senior living perspective, I think the word that I would use to just describe the future we're going for is ecosystem. We really, really want everything to be connected. That's the biggest time saver for everybody. So that's really our direction that we're headed from a product perspective. And myself personally, I'll add to that. I think just really growing more as an advocate in senior living for tech. I think it's really important to see what residents want, what they don't want, understanding how tech helps them or hinders them, right? So I think, especially as the resident demographics change all the time, I really want to get a deeper understanding of that. So that's the direction I personally am taking, and then Volanté's direction as well.
How do you do that? Do you put questionnaires? Do you poll people regularly?
I would say myself, I talk to the people that do that. So I would, a lot of connections and conversations with people at conferences that are doing that and running resident engagement platforms and surveys and really understanding the data and then taking that data and making business decisions with it.
Awesome. And if you weren't doing this, what would you be doing?
If I wasn't doing this, what would I be doing? I would love, I don't know. That's a great question. Maybe I would still be a technical writer. No one's ever asked me that. Caught me off guard. Ideally, I would be a professional equestrian. That would be my dream, but that's a big dream. So I'll stick with technical writer.
You can still pursue that for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah. We have a horse show here annually, a really big horse show. So I know that you can continue to do that.
Thanks, Abby. I will do my best.
You're welcome. Well, Shannon, it was so nice to have you here today and to learn more about Volanté. Where can people find you when they have questions?
Yeah, so you can find myself on LinkedIn. My name is Shannon Moyes. We've got a Volanté Systems page. You can Google us at Volanté Systems. We're also on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. But I would say our LinkedIn is definitely a go-to platform. And thank you so much for having me, Abby. It was so nice chatting with you and getting to know you and the entire community. Hello, everyone, and look forward to chatting with you all too.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you, Shannon. Well, I'm going to go ahead and play the intro. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. If you want to watch the rebroadcast of this, we will be putting it on YouTube, LinkedIn, as well as Facebook. And feel free to reach out to me at any time if you have any questions. It is always an honor and a privilege to serve this community. And you guys have a wonderful week.